Right, guys, I'm gonna start straight away. I know some of you join later or watch this video later on. Canisius, Deep, welcome. Dakangana Bunyora. I forgot to write the title of this talk, but most of you will know that when I come on, it's all about the Bitcoin. So I wanted to explain a little bit more because I know a lot of you just seem to have this idea that Bitcoin is about cash, or about money, and that you can make some money out of Bitcoin. And some of my friends are saying, you should have made a lot of money by now. And I just tell them, look, for me, Bitcoin is not about making instant cash or instant riches. I think if that is your idea of what Bitcoin is all about, then you will find that you'll probably fall prey to those people that are promising a lot of money, and then they give you some details, you give them your money, and at the end of the day, you're probably likely to lose, especially if what the person is using is called it's a platform which is centralized, in which case that platform can lose money or can be hacked or something like that. So let's talk about Bitcoin and what it is. First of all, it's a disruptive technology. If you think that the internet was disruptive, if you think that the internal combustion engine was disruptive, or if you think that electricity, the invention of electricity was disruptive, if you think that the invention of the car engine, the internal combustion engine, if you think that was disruptive, then you need to think about Bitcoin as being the next disruptive technology after all of these technologies that have changed the course of human life. These technologies have changed the course of human life, and Bitcoin is doing exactly what those technologies have done. Because first of all, Bitcoin is a technology. Bitcoin is not just the money that you've heard of, but it's a technology, and money is just the first. It's just the first application, or the most prominent one of those technologies, because we already have applications which are more than the Bitcoin the money. So we've got more than just Bitcoin the money. We've got other applications, right? So let's talk about Bitcoin, and I have here the Bitcoin white paper. And the Bitcoin white paper is simply what Satoshi Nakamoto had in mind when he thought about Bitcoin. So let's look. I'm just going to look at the abstract of the white paper. Then I'll look at the introduction. I will also look at the network section of it, where it talks about the network. And then I'll look at the part where it talks about the incentive. Then I'll also look at the part where he talks about privacy, a little bit on privacy, not trying to be technical. Part of the paper is quite technical. Then I'll go to the conclusion. So to begin with, and if anyone wants to be added, they can come on. And I'm going through this. It's going to take about half an hour without interruptions. But if anyone wants to join at any time, let me know and I'll let you join. And then you can ask any questions. If I can answer them, I'll answer them straight away. If not, I'll probably do a bit of research and then I'll come back to you. So the abstract starts as follows. So, first of all, the title is Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now, it's important to understand peer-to-peer, which basically means from person to person. Electronic cash system means a system of electronic cash. Now, what does that mean exactly? So what that means is we have, for the first time, a system of electronic cash. By cash, what do we mean? Imagine that you've got $10 or £10 in your pocket. You could simply pay for goods using that money, and that's physical cash. We have not been able to make the equivalent of cash payments in the digital form. So in the digital form, it's not cash because I cannot pay you. It's not peer-to-peer cash because I cannot pay you digitally, directly, without going through a third party. So going through a third party or going through a bank introduces some kind of friction. It slows down the process because the bank can decide that they can hold your money for a certain period of time before it's available. In fact, whenever you send a transaction to somebody else through a bank to their bank, they might tell you that it might take up to 48 hours, or it might take up to whatever time the bank says for that money to go through. What that means is it's not cash as in I cannot use my digital money, in my bank to pay for, say, tomatoes or for goods. So basically what it means is in the digital world, we've not had a situation where you can pay for goods directly with digital cash directly from one person to the other person. Whenever you use your card, whenever you pay using digital currency, you're paying the other person through a third party, so you're paying through a bank or a financial institution. Which means it does not mimic cash. So what does Bitcoin do? Bitcoin comes, and Bitcoin is able to allow you to make a direct payment to the person next to you or to anybody around the world without going through a third party, without going through a bank. So that's peer-to-peer because you're not going through a bank. It's not from peer to business to peer. It's peer-to-peer. So you're bypassing the third party. You're bypassing the third party, and the third party will charge you for a transaction. But because it's going peer-to-peer, you're not being charged. So what's the difference between electronic cash and just cash, or just electronic cash in the form of Bitcoin or just electronic cash? The difference is electronic cash as Bitcoin is peer-to-peer. Electronic cash in the traditional sense is not peer-to-peer, but it's peer-to-business, then to peer. Or it's peer-to-business, then to another business, then to peer. Because sometimes it's peer-to-business, then from business to the government, where this money is going, then from the government to peer. So sometimes it takes, which is why it's expensive to send money. But with Bitcoin, it's cheap because you're sending from person to person. So no third party is involved. So I hope that makes sense. So let's look at the abstract. The abstract, guys, if there are questions, please ask because I want to answer questions as we go along. So the abstract reads as follows. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. So it's exactly what I've been explaining. So it means with Bitcoin, you bypass a financial institution and money is going from person to person or from peer to peer. And it's electronic cash. As in, it's as if you're paying somebody cash. So imagine you got £10 in your pocket and you buy some tomatoes, you can pay for that using the £10, and you can get your change straight away. So it's the same thing now with Bitcoin as cash, as electronic cash, in that you are able to do a similar transaction, but you're paying the person directly because the money is not going through a financial institution first or through a bank. So it's coming straight to the person. Okay? Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. So double spending is a problem which Bitcoin is trying to solve. It's a problem which is not a problem when you're dealing with physical cash. Okay, if you have £10, I'll keep using 10. If you have £10 in your pocket and you spend £5, you're left with £5. Okay, that is if it's cash. But if it's not cash, if it's electronic cash, okay, for electronic money, it means that if you pay for goods, if you have £10 and you pay for goods for £5, the third party, which is the bank which is handling the transaction, may not immediately reconcile that you now have a balance of £5. So it might still reflect that you still have £10, and you could spend the other £5 and be left with nothing. But the bank would still say you have £10 in your account. So you could still spend another £10. So eventually, with the £10 that you originally had, you could spend £20. Okay? And that means you have done what we call double spending. But you can't do double spending if you have £10 cash, because as soon as you get £5 change, your pocket reflects that you've got £5 in your pocket, physical cash. Okay? Then if you use the £5 that's remaining, then you're left with nothing. But if you're using your card, it could reflect that you still have £10. So you could spend another £10 on top of that. And that's what we call double spending. So double spending is not possible when you're dealing with Bitcoin. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. Okay, so there is proof of work, which means that the system is able to recognize that a certain amount of money has been spent at this time because it's time stamped. Okay, it's like it knows that at 12:05 you spent £5, and at 7 past you spend the other £5. So you cannot double spend because it is reconciling those transactions as soon as they happen. Okay, then I don't think I'll go through all of this because already it's sounding very technical, and I didn't want it to sound technical. So I've read about the proposition for a solution to the double spending problem. Then the network timestamps transactions by hashing them, I've read that. The longest chain not only serves as proof of the sequence of events witnessed, but proof that it came from the largest pool of CPU power. So what does this mean? It means that these guys are using proof of work. For example, if you look at Great Zimbabwe in Zimbabwe, okay, if you look at the pyramids of Egypt, if you look at the buildings in London, or if you look at any kind of infrastructure, if you look at the Mona Lisa painting, for example, that is proof of work. Okay, it means somebody put some work into it. It's proof because it's physical evidence that some work was done. Okay, it's physical evidence that some work was done. Now, in Bitcoin, the system tries to mimic that kind of proof of work, okay? And it also timestamps it so that we know, and it timestamps it, and then it forms a chain of evidence. So the chain is evidence, and the longest chain is evidence that CPU power was used, because these transactions use a lot of electricity. They use CPU power, they use electricity. So the longest chain is proof that the largest amount of CPU power has been used to obtain the longest chain. Just like the tallest building is proof that more energy has been, or more time has been spent building the largest building than building a smaller building, okay? Although the reverse could be just as valid, because technology might have assisted to make the tallest building take the shortest amount of time, okay? But in terms of Bitcoin, the longest chain, because each part of the chain is using a lot of electricity, and that electricity that is being used is proof that work has been done. Okay, so the longest chain is proof that work has been done, so that's why they call it proof of work. Okay, as long as the majority of CPU power is controlled by nodes and are not cooperating to attack the network, they will generate the longest chain and outpace attackers. The network itself requires minimal structure. Messages are broadcast on a best effort basis, and nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the longest proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone. Okay? So there's a lot to take in here. Then there's got an introduction on the white paper. I'm going through the Bitcoin white paper. The very first paper, okay, before the introduction of the actual Bitcoin currency. And by the way, this Bitcoin peer-to-peer electronic cash system is so revolutionary that it describes exactly how Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, and all the applications which are built on top of the Bitcoin protocol or Bitcoin technology operate. So it's not just about the money, like I've said at the beginning of this live broadcast, but it's also about the other applications which use the Bitcoin protocol. And the protocol is just a system of rules, okay? So let me see. I don't want to make this long, but there's an introduction which says that commerce on the internet has come to rely almost exclusively on financial institutions serving as trusted third parties to process electronic payments. While the system works well enough for most transactions, it still suffers from inherent weaknesses of the trust-based model. Completely non-renewable transactions are not readily possible. Okay, so I think you can download this white paper and read it for yourself. I'd recommend that you read the abstract and then you just read the introduction, and then you read about the network, and then you can read about the incentive. So instead of continuing to read this, I'll just talk about them as I've already read this before. So in the introduction, they talk about the fact that the internet is an e-commerce or a commerce platform. And on this platform, this is what's been happening. Third parties have remained third parties. Right, Felix? I'll answer you very quickly on that one. So the story here is that I'm talking about Bitcoin, but I don't want to focus on Bitcoin the fluctuating cryptocurrency that you've seen in the papers, that you've seen on the internet, where in December it went up to almost £20,000 per one Bitcoin, and now it's almost, I think it's gone down to less than 5,000. So it's been fluctuating quite a lot. But the white paper is not just about Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency. The white paper is about Bitcoin, the protocol itself. So it talks about what other applications could come up. For example, earlier this week I talked about an application called Apex, which is going to come up later this year. And Apex, APPICS, Apex is like Facebook. So it's a social network which is coming up. And that social network is going to mimic Facebook, but the only difference is that it's going to pay people, or it's going to reward people for posting, for commenting, for liking posts, for watching. So if you're watching this on Apex, you're going to be paid for it. That's basically what it means. And that comment that you put there, if you put a comment on Apex, you'd get paid for it. And so it rewards the attention that you're getting on social media. So the application Apex, okay, which is coming out later this year, bases it's the way that it works on this very white paper. So this white paper is not just for Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, but it's also for Bitcoin, the applications. So, and Apex is one of them. Right now, there's a platform called Steemit, which is like, it's a blogging platform just like WordPress. And on this platform, if you post on it, if you get comments, if you get likes, if you get reposts and stuff like that, you get paid for it, okay? So this is the fundamental document or white paper behind all these applications which are going to come up. You also have DTube, which is like a YouTube, okay? It's a video blogging platform for people who want to do vlogging. But now on Facebook, on YouTube, if you have less than 1,000 followers or 1,000 subscribers, you cannot monetize your content. If you could monetize your content before, after the 1st of April or something like, after the 20-something of March, it means you can no longer do that. You need to get at least 1,000 subscribers. And besides the 1,000 subscribers, you also need more than 4,000 hours of viewing on your site so that you're able to monetize your content. But on DTube, you don't. From day one, from the first video, from the first view, from the first comment, from the first like, from the first share, from the first response to a comment, you're already attracting some kind of revenue from it. The founder of Apex is not somebody you would know. It's a group of people, I think they are from Switzerland or something like that, who have come up with Apex. But I can always look that up. Jason, how are you? So I can always look that up and I can put it in the comments afterwards, or I can look it up here. I've actually got one of their papers here, which I'm gonna do one of these days. Let me just search for it, and I can tell you who is. There's quite a number of people. If you go on my Facebook, you will find, I'll probably post it about these guys. Okay, but I mean, I can always find that out and I'll respond to that comment later on. Okay, so there are many applications which are coming up which are going to use the decentralized, because the issue here is about the difference between a centralized network and a decentralized network. So a centralized network is like Facebook, because for you to, when you post something on Facebook, okay, it goes to a central location, at a data center which Facebook is maintaining. And if Facebook is down, it means nobody can access Facebook. But if it's decentralized, it means that you would have a copy of Facebook on your machine at home, and I would have a copy of Facebook on my machine at home, and every user of Facebook would have the exact same copy of Facebook on their machines. So that if my machine was down, okay, Facebook would carry on all the other machines. But if Facebook is on some farm in California, it means that if that farm, if that place is attacked, then there is no Facebook. If that place is down, then there's no Facebook. So those are centralized systems, just like a bank. A bank is a centralized system. If the bank is closed, okay, you cannot access banking services, which you can use when a bank is open. You could probably use their online banking system. But if the online banking system was also down, because we know that sometimes banks will do maintenance sometimes, and they'll tell you that from midnight on a certain day to 5 in the morning, there will be no services. Okay, so they can do that, which means at that time, for those 3 or 4 or 5 hours, you have no access to Facebook. I mean, to your bank, even the online version of the bank. Okay, you might still have access to the ATM, but that means you have to go out and withdraw your monies. Okay, so that's so the main difference here is that these platforms which are coming up, which are based on the blockchain, those platforms are decentralized, whereas what we have now are centralized systems, just like government is a centralized system. Okay, which is why some people fight for devolution, because they want devolution because they want to make their own decisions, because the decisions which are being made on their behalf are not in their best interests, or they are not being made timelessly. So they would like to be in charge of their own decision making. Okay, so the major difference between, for example, Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, and a digital currency, which is just a digital version of the fiat currency, is that the digital is that the Bitcoin is decentralized, and the digital form of fiat currency is centralized, which means Barclays is in charge of the database where all the transactions are happening, so they can decide when to open, when to close, and stuff like that. Okay, so here's the thing. Bitcoin is a network, okay? So money is a network which comprises a central bank. It comprises Ronald Nyandandeep, long time. So a bank, or the fiat currency, is a network which comprises the central bank, comprises the commercial banks, and maybe all the other types of banks, financial institutions, and also the people who are using the banking system. So the consumers, the bankers, the depositors, so to speak. So that is the network which comprises the fiat currency. Okay, but Bitcoin is just made up of a network of people like you and me, okay, who each have, so each person becomes their own bank. Okay, each person becomes their own bank, and they can either buy the cryptocurrency and keep it in their bank, in their, so there's not actually an account, but this cryptocurrency is residing on a network, and individual people have keys, okay, to their share of the network. So if a network is made of 100 units and there are 10 people and each person has 10 units, it means each person has keys to those 10 units, and they can use their key to transfer 2 or 3 units to another network participant. So that's what Bitcoin is all about. It's about a network in which there's a pool of money, or there's a pool of value, a pool of currency, and that pool is owned by individuals according and they have keys which are evidence of what they own on the network. So my key could be holding 20 units out of the 100, and your key might be holding 2 units or 30 units. And so that's what it's all about. So it's a network, basically. It's a network, and in that so because we belong to the same network, we have a single database which has got all the transactions. So whatever transaction takes place, we have access to this database, but we cannot make changes, okay, to that database without consultation with the other members of this network. So there is validation which needs to take place. Right. And then, so the network is Bitcoin, and the network of Bitcoin, the technology, which is capital letter B, but it's also come up with an incentive system. So the incentive system is to incentivize those people who are helping to secure the network, because it's a network, it needs to be secure. If you have a network, it needs to be secure, and because it's decentralized, even more reason for it to be secure. So the Bitcoin, the small letter B, the cryptocurrency, is just the that is the incentive system for Bitcoin, the network of Bitcoin, the platform. Okay, I'm not going to talk about previous issues. I'll just read through part of the conclusion, that the part which makes sense, which I can then explain. So we've proposed a system. This is Satoshi Nakamoto and Tim. We don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, as much as you don't know who created money, who created paper money, who created fiat currencies. We don't know, okay? If you take out money from your pocket, you will probably see the head of somebody. I'll take one out here. So this is 10 pounds. And on this 10 pounds, there is a head of the queen. Okay, I don't know why her head is there. Okay, but maybe it's to do with trust, because she's probably a trusted person, which is why she doesn't make political statements, because that will tend to... if she made political statements and some people didn't like her, imagine if people didn't like her and she's honored on money, okay, what would that do to a country? So I think that is one reason why. I just want to see if there's anything here which is quite common, like in God. It says, I can't read now properly, but on most money to write, I promise to pay the bearer on demand. And by the way, this is debt. This means that I owe somebody something. That's why I've got this. Okay, that's why you go to work. You go to work so that you get paid. You get paid so that you pay somebody. Okay. I was speaking to a friend earlier, and we were talking about mortgage, and I was saying, because you have a mortgage, it means that it's going to take you a very long time to finish a debt. So already you are in debt. If you're a student and you're being educated by a government, and you've been given a student loan, as soon as you start working, they want their money back. So already you are in debt. As a student, you're already in debt. As soon as you finish, you get more debt because you have to get a mortgage, okay? And then you have to ask the question, exactly why the price of a house appreciates, okay? Because if I look at my house, okay, although its price is going up, I cannot explain why it's going up. And I want you to help me with this. Maybe explain to me why it's going up. Because the walls are getting dirty. The gutters need fixing. There's a lot going wrong with the house. Okay, it's getting old, but its price is going up. Why is it going up? Because it means that the next person to buy this house has got more debt. Okay, if I bought this house for, say, I'm gonna give an arbitrary figure like 500,000. Okay, if I got this house for 500,000, and then within 10, 15, 20 years, it's worth 1.5 million. Okay, it means it's got £1 million on top. It means the person who's going to buy this house is in more debt. Okay, say for the inflation, I know there's inflation and all that, but that person is going to be in more debt. So these are some of the things that we don't really think about on a daily basis. But these are questions which the people that came up with Bitcoin, they asked these questions, and to find answer to these questions, they've come up with a currency which is different from what we're used to. Okay, so we've proposed a system for electronic transactions without relying on trust. Okay, so the thing is, if you have something that you're selling and I need to pay you £10, okay, if I told you I didn't have the money on me and I was going to give you the money the following day, if you trusted me, you'd give me the thing. Sometimes, even if you didn't trust me, you'll still give me the thing. And then you'd make a decision on whether to trust me again if I don't pay you tomorrow. Okay? So trust is at the top of most of the transactions that we're making on a daily basis. And so because we have a problem with trust, we've come up with institutions which guarantee that trust. And one of the institutions is government. If there's a government seal on anything, you're most likely to trust it than if there's no government seal on it. And also, banks are more trusted than individuals. So some people would rather meet in a bank, okay, in order to make a transaction, because it's an institution of trust, just like churches and other public institutions. Those are institutions of trust, okay? But Bitcoin is different. Bitcoin is a network, okay, which does not rely on trust. In fact, it works better where there is no trust, okay? That's what Bitcoin is designed to do. It's designed to perform in a place where there's no trust. And more so now, because now we are making a lot of transactions online, okay, on the internet. But the internet itself is not a trusted place. So Bitcoin has come up in order to address that issue, where you can now transact without having to worry about trust. In fact, you can now transact without even thinking about trust, because it's Bitcoin itself is also called the trust protocol. Okay. We started with the usual framework of coins made from digital signatures, which provides strong control of ownership, but it's incomplete without a way to prevent double spending. I've talked about that. To solve this, we proposed a peer-to-peer network using proof of work to record a public history of transactions. That quickly becomes computationally impractical for an attacker to change if honest nodes control a majority of CPU power. Okay, so it is more difficult to hack a Bitcoin network, which is why in almost 10 years, every hacking attempt has failed, okay, let's say so far, because you never know, it could be hacked one day, but the way it works is that it becomes increasingly more difficult and expensive as well, because imagine that to mine one Bitcoin probably consumes as much electricity as a household pays at the end of the month. So that's just one Bitcoin. To reverse or to hack or to reverse that transaction will take even more electricity. So that whoever is trying to do it would have to pay a lot of money. So there is no incentive to hack. There is incentive to secure the network. There's incentive to make it more secure, but there's a disincentive to attack it or to undo what has already been done. Okay, so basically that's what Bitcoin is all about. It's not just about money, it's about applications. Just like the internet is not just about Facebook, the internet is not just about email, the internet is not just about Skype, for example. The internet is about all of these applications. Okay, so you have the internet, then you've got the applications which are running on the internet. In as much as you have Bitcoin, the network, then you have applications like Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency with a small letter B, Bitcoin, the network as capital letter B, Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency as a small letter B, and it's not the only application. So Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, is just one application. Then you have other applications, including social media applications. You have what we call, you have platforms like DTube, for example, on the decentralized, on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin. You have applications which mimic Facebook, which mimic YouTube, which mimic you can think of any platform, any application that you find on the internet, and that application is going to have a counterpart, or it can convert and become, for example, Facebook could change its business model. Although because Facebook has already got investors, it's unlikely to do that. So it's unlikely to come up or to buy one of these platforms which are already decentralized and maybe have another business model. Just like they've bought WhatsApp, just like Facebook has bought Instagram. You know, they could buy Steemit, for example. They could buy Apix. So Apix is one such platform, which is like Facebook. Steemit is another platform, which is just like WordPress. Okay, but the difference is that the platforms on Bitcoin are decentralized. The platforms on the internet, most of them, or almost all of them, are centralized. Just like traditional institutions are also centralized. Okay, guys? I know this is it's a difficult topic, not only to explain but to understand. And so all I ask is that you guys ask questions, because it's not the difficult stuff that needs explaining, it's the simple stuff that needs explaining. So if you can ask me any question on this, then I can answer it and I can be more specific, because right now I'm trying to be as general as possible, and also I'm trying to relate to what we already know, which is also a problem with Bitcoin, because it's almost like after learning mechanical physics, for example, you then go on to learn quantum mechanics. Okay, if you go on to learn quantum mechanics, it sort of flips everything upside down. Okay, so Bitcoin sort of flips everything upside down, and it is difficult to compare it to what we already know, because that produces problems in our understanding of Bitcoin, because it's a completely revolutionary technology, but it's trying to address the problems that we have now. And the other problem is that in some places, for example, there is no need for Bitcoin yet, because they have no problems with liquidity, for example. So they don't see the need for Bitcoin. But in other places where governments have failed to provide liquidity, and where the technology is, or the infrastructure is right for Bitcoin to be implemented, okay? In those places, they might see more need for Bitcoin than in others. It's just like there is need for public transport in other places than in other places, okay? So it's difficult to prescribe the same solution for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is more of a solution in some places than in others. So it's going to, and also Bitcoin is a technology which is disrupting governments. And so governments are naturally resistant to the idea of Bitcoin, which is making the adoption of Bitcoin. Somebody asked me, if Bitcoin is such a solution, if Bitcoin is so good, then why is Bitcoin not being adopted like fast? But it's because the institution that is trying to replace, okay, their power relies on those institutions. So if you try to replace those institutions with Bitcoin, you're killing governments, you're killing banks, you're killing schools, okay? You're killing hospitals, okay? You're killing healthcare systems, educational systems, governance. You're even disrupting voting, which means some people will not be able to rig anymore. So I talked about all the applications that it can use, and those include almost all the applications which are running on the internet. So it could replace them, but it can also replace government. It can also replace, we talk about land barons in Zimbabwe, for example. And the reason red barons are able to flourish is because there is no system of checks and balances which is able to track exactly what they are doing. So they are able to do this. But if we could do that, and with Bitcoin we can do that, we can track the land registry. Britain is already doing that. It's already doing using the blockchain I'm just checking. Christian, welcome. Elliot, welcome. Dr. Wiseman, Dr. Elliot, welcome, guys. Welcome, my sister Trish from Ireland. Murirandepi, I was with you just now. So, guys, I've come to the end of this one. Not an interesting topic for most people, but for me, it's revolutionary. It's like talking about the internet in 1989 or 1990. You know, when you talked about the internet then, it was difficult to explain HTTP, internet, hypertext internet transfer protocol, and all that. It was difficult to do that. It was difficult to explain email. What is email? It was difficult to explain anything to do with the internet. So in 2018, it is difficult to talk about Bitcoin and to explain it. We can compare it to the internet, but it still doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But I think it's a revolutionary technology, and I think it's a solution to some of the problems that we confront, especially in Africa, anything to do with trust. So think of Bitcoin as a solution to anything that has to do with recording something. So any information that is recorded, if we can record information and make sure that that information cannot be changed by anyone and can be, for example, voting. Imagine if we could stop people rigging voting, okay, political parties from rigging. We could stop them with Bitcoin, okay? And how could we do that? Because it would timestamp everything. It check who voted when, and then we could refer to the database, the blockchain, the decentralized database, which will be available on everyone's computer who's taken part in the voting, and it will be difficult for anyone to change the result, because any change would be the computer which tried to change a voting, okay, would be identified, and the person could be identified. And before a change could take place, the other computers would have to agree to the change. And that will be difficult to achieve. So thanks guys for watching. I think I've answered the 2 questions which I was asked. So I will see you in another video. I'm going to make as many as possible. Different topics, but this Bitcoin, I think, is something I'm going to be talking about for the next 10 to 20 years until we all get it. Good night.